Hello everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to our webinar on sustainability with the Costa Rica Tourism Board. This webinar forms part of Pura Vida Week with Costa Rica in association with TTG. I am Maddie Barber, the Special Projects Editor at TTG Media, and I'm joined today by Zishan Rashid, who is the Senior UK Sales Manager at Costa Rica, and Ben Lynham, who is Head of Strategic Communications at the Travel Foundation. So thank you both so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So during this webinar, we're going to give you an introduction to the Travel Foundation and why it's such a key player in sustainable travel, as well as why now is the time to start selling with sustainability in mind. Zishan's going to be telling us about Costa Rica and sustainability and why the country is a sustainable destination, plus its selling points for eco-conscious customers. He's also going to be outlining Costa Rica's sustainability goals for the future and how you and your customers can support sustainable travel and the action points that you need to take to do so. So we've got some videos today, we've got some presentation slides. So let's get started. Before we do, Ben, I just wanted to ask you a question about the Travel Foundation. Agents might not be aware of the foundation and what it does. Can you just please explain a little bit about its purpose and the background and the work you've been doing when it comes to sustainable travel?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Madeline. So the Travel Foundation is a charity. We're based in, we're registered in the UK. We do have people obviously working all around the world because we focus on destinations and making sure that tourism benefits destinations and is good for destinations. So that's really our focus. And we've done lots of different work and projects over the years. We were established in 2003, so we've had nearly 20 years of experience now working with tour operators, working with governments, working with hotels, working with destinations themselves to look at how tourism is operating and to make changes that are going to improve the lives of the people in the destinations, or perhaps protect the environment, or other things like that.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And you're up first with your presentation. So if you'd like to get your slides ready, and let's hear some more. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I was asked to talk about what is sustainable tourism and also what can you do about it. I would describe us as a sustainable tourism charity, but funnily enough, we try not to use that term too much. So we don't really talk about sustainable tourism as a rule, unless we really do need to do so just for shorthand. And that's really because what's the first thing that you think about when we say sustainable tourism? So I imagine you might be thinking right now about maybe saving energy, turning off the lights, that sort of thing, or reducing waste. We've got some straws there. So are we ditching some plastic straws, or are we looking at other single-use plastic perhaps? Maybe you're thinking about green transport. Maybe you're thinking about how you travel to and from a destination, or what you're doing when you're there, maybe renting a bike. And perhaps you're thinking about local sourcing, crafts, souvenirs, that sort of thing. Or perhaps just more generally, you're thinking about the kind of holidays that we're talking about here. Maybe you're thinking ecotourism, sort of experiences in the great outdoors, that sort of thing. Now, all these things are really good things, but what you've done is leapt to some specific issues and solutions. We feel that the term sustainable tourism leads people down to kind of sideline and pigeonhole what needs to be done in tourism, because actually, do any of those things actually resolve the issues that many destinations are facing? So when we think about destinations, it tends to be that they are concerned with at least some of the issues listed on the screen here. So it might be that there's a real problem with seasonality. It might be that the money being spent in the local economy is leaking out of the economy, economic leakage. There are issues of low margins and overcrowding, overconsumption, overdependence, basically over tourism, which still hasn't gone away despite COVID. It's just moved to new places potentially. We very often visit very fragile environments when we're traveling. And when we're there, it may be that tourism is contributing to issues around exclusion and inequity. And of course, not to mention threats from future pandemics and of course, the climate emergency. So I'm just going to remind you really of this invisible burden of tourism, as we called it, when we put out a report with Cornell University and Eplerwood International in 2019. So here's a really short video just to summarize its core premise.
International tourism is rising and fast. In 2018, arrivals reached 1.4 billion. While tourism can bring economic development and other benefits, it also brings a range of hidden costs. Wherever it exists, tourism places an invisible burden on destinations. On the face of it, tourism pays its way. Tourists spend their money on local services, and businesses pay local taxes and utility bills. But many costs are not accounted for, such as the cost to upgrade infrastructure beyond resident needs to meet tourism demand, the cost to manage and protect public spaces and natural habitats, the cost of increased exposure to climate change risks, and the cost to locals of rising house and land prices driven by the demand from tourism. Either residents are left to pick up the tab, or it's just not paid, leaving the environment and other public assets to suffer. When visitor numbers are low, the invisible burden goes largely unnoticed. But as tourism grows, every new visitor brings unanticipated costs to the destination. As the invisible burden escalates, destinations become spoiled and residents protest or are forced to leave. Failing to account for tourism's invisible burden puts fragile ecosystems, cultural wonders, and community life at risk. This puts tourism on a weak foundation that could crack under its own weight. But it doesn't have to be this way. Destinations need our attention and resources. Dynamic leadership, new talent, investment platforms, and analysis of the invisible burden will benefit visitors and residents alike, now and for generations to come. Find out more by reading the report at invisibleburden.org.
So it's clear that there are unaccounted costs associated with the additional demand of visitors. There's lots of information out there about the economic benefits of tourism, the 1 in 10 jobs, etc., but actually very little on the costs to a destination. So we just don't really know if tourism truly pays for the destination and for residents. We're now working with Cornell University on an Invisible Burden online course, which should be available later on this year, that will be focusing on helping destinations to actually begin to measure and account for some of these costs. Obviously now is a peculiar time, but we wonder if it might actually be one that's ripe for change. There are lots of external drivers at the moment. We've obviously just been, we're coming out of a pandemic. And that basically means that a lot has already changed around supply and demand in the tourism industry. It's an opportunity really to think about reshaping the visitor economy as it #builds back better. Equally, we've seen increased focus on things like climate and climate change. The fact that we had COP26 in Glasgow last November, and also at that event, we launched the Glasgow Declaration, which I'm going to talk about in a bit more detail. We've had things like the Black Lives Matter movement during lockdown, raising fundamental questions about equity in tourism and the relationship between outbound, inbound, visitor and host, which is at the center of tourism. And we've seen over-tourism shift, and many people are potentially questioning the return of tourism now. Residents wondering, perhaps enjoying what it was like to have their cities back for a period of time, and now wondering about what it's going to be like to have tourism back again. And we've certainly seen a real shift in attitudes among customers, at least based on all the research and surveys that are coming through at the moment, with a real kind of feeling like that things have to change, and they'll be looking for more sustainable options in the future, and actually even making their choices on purchasing decisions on that basis. But what does Build Back Better actually mean? That was one of the issues that we had during lockdown, where we could see that this was really a great mantra for people to start to pick up on. But what does better mean? It can obviously mean very different things to different people. So last year we teamed up with other NGOs that are similar to us from around the world, and we formed the Future of Tourism Coalition. And we united to set up these 13 guiding principles, which we developed to really put some form to what Build Back Better could actually mean. And this vision isn't just shared by us 5 NGOs. There are more than 650 organizations now, destinations and businesses, big names and small, that have become signatories to these principles. And they're already serving to inspire tourism plans, recovery plans, and other strategies. So I would absolutely encourage you to find out more about this and to join this growing movement at thefutureoftourism.org. It's one way that you can actually begin to make a difference and be part of a community that's thinking in a different way about the future of tourism. So we see that there are really 3 reset buttons that you can press to make a difference with tourism. The first is to put communities at the centre, and that really means a new mandate that's wider than tourism businesses for the way that tourism is developed in a destination. The second is to measure what really matters, going back to the invisible benefits and also, invisible burdens and also the invisible benefits. So really understanding what tourism is about in your destination and how to optimize the benefits and minimize the burdens. And thirdly, it's to decarbonize. And that's where we come to the Glasgow Declaration. So as I mentioned, at the climate conference in Glasgow, we launched the Glasgow Declaration on Climate Action in Tourism. The drafting committee included the UN WTO, the World Tourism Organization, the UN Environment Programme, Tourism Declares a Climate Emergency, Visit Scotland, and us, the Travel Foundation. And again, I'm just going to play you now a short video to explain it a bit more. Okay, so those who are signing up to the Glasgow Declaration are really signing up to these 3 core commitments. The first one is to sign up to this global commitment to halve emissions by 2030 and reach net zero as soon as possible. Secondly, they must commit to publishing a climate action plan within 12 months of signing and implement that accordingly, showing progress annually to everyone on a public basis too. So it's important to note that this is more than just a pledge. Those people who are signing it are committing themselves to decarbonising and to a climate action plan that's going to encourage further action across the whole of the industry. During launch, over 300 signatories had signed up, and since then it's more like 600. Obviously, we can't put the logos up of everyone who's signed. That would be far too many. But I think it's important to note that there's a good distribution of different types of organizations. Again, it's a mixture of destinations and businesses, and also supporting organizations. So that those are people who we feel have got more of a multiplier role and can not just decarbonize their own operations, but perhaps they have excellent networks, or they have a membership body, or perhaps some other ways that they can encourage a more of an enabling environment for decarbonisation. But to be clear, it isn't just decarbonisation either. So we have 5 pathways that we encourage all signatories to consider in the action plans. So first of all, they have to measure. And of course, that's for many the first step, and potentially the most complicated for them, actually, in terms of understanding what to measure and how to measure it. And we will be providing all the signatories with guidance on how to do that. Secondly, it's to decarbonise itself, and that's to make sure that you identify the right actions and strategies to be sure that you are able to decarbonise. Thirdly is regeneration, and we think that this is a really important part of the planning for tourism. We see tourism as not just an emitter of carbon, if you like, but also a real solution for a destination. Tourism offers the opportunity to put a new value on nature and to look for ways to coordinate supply chains, and so impact on other sectors too. So there's a real unique contribution that tourism can make for a destination to take action on climate. And then the last 2 areas here are really just ways of achieving the first 3 pathways. So collaboration is absolutely key. No one organization can fix this issue. And many of the solutions require collaboration across the whole sector, or at least across a destination. And of course, finance. We just need to make sure that there's enough resources available to align with any action that we're taking. So to conclude, it's clear that tourism needs to change. It needs to transition to 2030. It needs to do that not just because of climate change, but also because of those sort of fundamental issues around tourism that has bedeviled it for decades, and really requires the community to be placed at the core of how we understand tourism. Destinations are everyone's business. They need not just to survive, but to thrive. And that will enable tourism to thrive. They need to be supported, and communities need to be assisted to become destination stewards for now and future generations. You can support our cause and our work. Your donations and the donations from your customers will help us to advocate for more of a destination stewardship approach and address some of these impacts that are occurring in destinations. It shows you care and will allow us to do some great work. And your involvement in our global initiatives brings us together into one unified movement. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much to Ben for sharing those slides and telling us more about the Travel Foundation. Great to learn about all the fantastic work that they're doing. But Zishan, coming to you next to talk about Costa Rica specifically. Why do you, as the tourist board, feel able to promote Costa Rica as a sustainable destination to travel to on holiday?
Great question. So Costa Rica is known as the green heart of Central America, and it's not only because of the green canopies cover about 28% of the land, but it's because sustainability is at the heart of what drives the country and the tourism board. So every experience we can give a tourist, the accommodation, the protocols put in place for anyone working in the tourism sector, it's the heart of it. It's about what will give the visitors what they want without a negative impact on the country, its people, and the earth. So simply put, if we believe that promoting tourism was not helping the local economy and it wasn't protecting the flora and fauna, we wouldn't promote tourism.
Brilliant, thank you. And what would you say are the key selling points that agents can use with their eco-conscious customers when they're talking to them about Costa Rica?
Yeah, so a lot of our tour guides, are local to the area and have been trained as the bird watchers, the wildlife guides, or in a lot of the hotels and eco lodges, it's the local staff working. So I think there's that that you are actually helping into the local economy and you are supporting Costa Ricans. But also maybe also something for someone who isn't such an eco-conscious traveler is I think there's always this thought that if I want to be a responsible traveler, I can't have my luxuries, and that's not exactly true. You can have all your luxuries, but be eco-conscious. So by choosing to stay in a luxury eco lodge, your experience is probably actually better because you can stay in a 5-star eco lodge, but it's been designed so that wildlife can walk through the eco lodge and through the resort. Now, when you come to Costa Rica, that's the experience you want, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds fantastic. I'd love to stay in an eco lodge.
They're amazing.
Yeah, and in terms of future goals for Costa Rica, what does the tourist board have as goals and aims for the future when it comes to sustainability?
So Ben was talking about reaching net zero emissions by 2050, and Costa Rica is, supporting that goal, and by being one of the countries that hits carbon neutral by 2050. Already 99% of the country's electricity runs on renewable resources, which is great. And then also, sustainability isn't more than just flora and fauna. It's actually a lot about the local economies and supporting, the locals around the country. And something we did in 2019 was a report called the Social Progress Index report. And we found that areas where there was tourism, especially from UK European tourism, where they choose to travel more around the country, those areas, the quality of life of the locals improve. So now a focus for us is to really spread that tourism dollar around the country so that everyone benefits. And then that also helps us overcome and something else Ben talked about, which is overcrowding and over-tourism. Everyone wants to go to Costa Rica now, but it's a small destination, so we need to spread that tourism out. And something I mentioned, and I probably mentioned this in every webinar, is saying that we've got more than one of everything, so it's quite easily done for us.
Yeah, some fantastic goals names there. Brilliant to hear. So let's take a look at a short video that's going to showcase some of Costa Rica's best natural environments and why you and your customers should want to protect them. Okay, brilliant. So, Zishan, I want to hear a bit more about the Pura Vida pledge that Costa Rica has set up. And what can agents and their customers do to support sustainable travel when they're visiting Costa Rica? I think you've got a presentation for us now, so please do go ahead and tell us more about the Pura Vida pledge.
Thank you so much, Maddie. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk about the Pura Vida Pledge with you guys. So the Pura Vida Pledge is something that we've created. It's 5 pillars that is our commitment to promoting sustainable and responsible travel. And what I will be talking about today are those 5 steps and how you as a travel agent or UK tour operator can kind of get on board and support the pledge. So the first is the certification of sustainable tourism. So the Tourism Board developed a program called the CST, where we award companies with a certificate if they have some kind of sustainable practice in so whether if it's a tour operator, accommodation, a restaurant, if they are promoting sustainable practices, they are given the certification of sustainable tourism. So what we're asking our UK partners is when you're working with the DMC or when you are selling hotels in Costa Rica, or wherever or working with an excursion site, please ensure that they are CST approved and only work with CST partners. It's a very big list. We're very fortunate that a lot of companies in Costa Rica support this program, so you have a lot of choice. And to access the full list of DMCs and accommodations, head over to our trade site, puravidauniversity.co.uk, where you can download the full CST list. The second pillar is carbon offsetting. So Costa Rica is moving to a greener economy, and so which means to promote sustainable use of natural resources and fighting against carbon footprint. So we partnered with the Sustainable Biodiversity Fund in Costa Rica to develop the FONAFIFO tool. And that again is available on puravidauniversity.co.uk just for the trade. And so the FONAFIFO tool basically calculates your client's carbon offset. So you can basically just type in the airport that they're departing from, where they're landing, so San Jose International, for example, and then how much they would need to donate to carbon offset. And then that money goes directly into one of the many environmental projects in Costa Rica. So, for example, saving the rainforest or maybe a local community work. And so through puravidauniversity.co.uk is where agents can get the tool, but also you can download you can get the consumer link to share with your clients. Then the third action or the third pillar we suggest is supporting the local economy or volunteers. So it's basically really expanding your itineraries, as I mentioned a few times, focusing on the other key areas in Costa Rica. So it's not really that, what is it that your client wants? Do they want to go to Arenal for the hot springs, or do they want to go to Arenal specifically? If they want to go to Arenal for the hot springs and the volcanoes, then there's 200 others to consider. So it's kind of just thinking like that, or if they want to go to Hanging Bridge, is they assume they can only do that in Monteverde, but it's really knowing that they can do it in other parts of the country. So really developing itineraries that spread tourism throughout the country and kind of really advising clients on how, other places they can see in Costa Rica than the classic areas. And so I would again encourage you to go to Pura Vida University and take the online training course so you can learn more about we have a module called rural tourism, so we can learn about some of the other key areas that we want to grow. And then the fourth pillar is just respecting the environment, and it's just continue promoting Costa Rica and continue encouraging tourism to Costa Rica and any other destination really that believes in ecotourism, such as us, because what we want to do is we want to work with all of the tourism industry and all of our destination partners around the world and really make sustainable tourism and ecotourism the norm. And then the final pillar is actually from us to you. So this was actually developed during the pandemic. So the Quality Assurance Act. So it's just for you to know that we have done what we need to put in place to create 16 health protocols to safely reopen tourism in Costa Rica and to ensure that your customers are safe when they come to Costa Rica. And the Quality Assurance Act was approved by the World Travel and Tourism Council in July 2020. And at present, there are 73 Costa Rican businesses in the tourism industry who are doing the full 16 health protocols. And I believe most of them are all the DMCs that we work with here in the UK. And that is the Pura Vida Pledge. So to kind of get that full list from the Pura Vida Pledge, head to puravidauniversity.co.uk to access the tools such as the CST list and the FONAFIFO tool.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for those slides, Ishan. Really appreciate it. Is there anything else you'd like to put on agents' radar for when it comes to selling sustainable travel to Costa Rica before we wrap up?
I would just say, keep the Pura Vida Pledge in mind and encourage visitors to travel, to around the country in Costa Rica, not just one part of the country. Our experiences are not limited to just one location, as we discussed. And head over to the Pura Vida University website for more information on how to use the Pura Vida Pledge tools.
Lovely, thank you. And Ben, welcome back. I've just got one more question for you. How can agents support the Travel Foundation going forwards? I know you touched on it on your presentation, but is there a website they can go to donate?
There is. I mean, I would encourage anyone to come to our website at thetravelfoundation.org, but also to think about the initiatives that I mentioned in the presentation too, and think about whether or not you could sign on to those too. Absolutely that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the industry to get on board and to support those initiatives, and then to support us as a charity as well, in any way you can. Absolutely, if you feel like you can mention us to your customers and ask for donations, then that's what's going to make a difference to us, because we need as much resource as we can right now to make a difference.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to both of you for sharing your insight today. And thank you to everyone who's tuned in to watch. Don't forget to come back to tcgmedia.com/Costa Rica to watch the rest of the webinars in the series. We've got a range of themes spanning accommodation, touring, and nature and wildlife, as well as an introduction to selling Costa Rica for anyone who's new to destination or wants a refresher. So thank you again, and take care.